Hi there, welcome to FMCG by Alex. Today I would like to talk to you about something slightly different than FMCG. The fresh category is technically still involved in FMCG, but I used to be the commercial director for Tanihub, which was at the time one of the largest fresh distributors in Indonesia. We did a lot of e-commerce and a lot of F&B and a lot of retail as well. So I would really like to share with you some of my experiences in this sense, and I've worked with some of the best supply chain people in the world with regards to fresh. So I would like to also share what I caught on from them. So basically, I would like to start with a rundown of the category because what is actually included in fresh? You see the supermarket, you think, oh, fruit and vegetables, but it also includes meat and seafood. If you talk about everything that is fresh, some countries have other categories, other stuff that is actually involved in or included in fresh, basically. So not just fruit and vegetables and meat and seafood, but it really depends a bit on the geography you're in. The ones I've worked in have this as the definition of the fresh category. Now, fresh category is basically you think, oh, an apple is an apple. Yes and no. So the yes is yes, it's an apple. The no is there are so many different types of apples, not only the variety of apples. You have Royal Gala, you have Pink Lady, a lot of different types of apples basically. Um, there is a lot of differences in quality and also in grading. So quality is basically, of course, obvious. Like you see, is the product in good shape? So is the perfect size, the perfect shape, basically. The grading is actually really the size of the product. So the grading actually means like there are so many categories A, B, C, and so forth, and the lowest category is actually the rest, like a remainder type of thing, which is ungraded category. So there are supermarkets, for example, that say I would only like to have A and B grade products. So sometimes when you have a bad harvest, then of course there is less A grade available. Then of course you need to extend a little bit to B grade, and the way most suppliers are looking at it is, something that is actually B grade, they still pass off as A grade, which the slightly smaller apples, or they mix it in with the bigger size apples, basically. So there's for every single product there is, of course, a grading system. So if you look at, for example, eggs, which are sometimes included in this in fresh category, but usually it's more in the daily needs category. Even for eggs, there are 7 or 8 different grades, basically, depending on the country you're in. Um, Talking about quality and grading, of course, every supermarket has for the demographic a specific uh, grading preference. So you're talking about if you're premium supermarket, of course, you don't want to have C grade vegetables, fruit and vegetables, basically. Mainly also because I think there's hardly any supermarket that would really like to have rubbish in the on the shelf, because customers will maybe go to traditional markets in a country like Indonesia, for example. We've spent a lot of time. Traditional markets, you have people going there and then searching through a pile of ungraded and unsorted fruit and vegetables, actually, for whatever they need, and they come out with they go out basically with quite a lot of stuff that is still good from all of the ungraded pile of fruit and vegetables, basically. So the supply chain challenges are really that some stuff really needs to be to market quick. So let's say harvested in the morning, and by 3-4 o'clock it should actually be sold. Otherwise, it's not good anymore. So you're talking really about hours and not days, basically, in terms of that. Of course, cold chain logistics actually lengthen the time you can still keep something fresh or quasi fresh. If you look at most of the imported products, basically, if you look at let's say I'm in the Netherlands at this moment. If you look at apples and also oranges, there is a bit of a wax layer around oranges, for example. So it is like it's shiny. if you really rub it with your hand, it will give off basically. That's a protective layer that people put on it to keep it good for a longer period of time. The same goes for apples. Apples, of course, can't be harvested all year long. In essence, you have some storage, you have some stuff that is actually going into cold storage in that sense. And also, yeah, you have certain supply chain challenges where normally for fresh you are looking at area close to where you want to sell it to buy it from if you are a retailer or a distributor. Um, if the supply is actually smaller, yeah, you need to, of course, take it away from a further distance. So this longer distance makes it, yeah, more difficult to keep things fresh. Basically, the climate might actually play a role, the quality of the transport, of course, the time. So simply with time, also fruit and vegetables actually deteriorate. Meat and seafood you can still keep frozen, so that is actually a way they're looking at it to keep it fresh. It's just that, of course, yeah, frozen chicken doesn't taste the same as fresh chicken. Fresh chicken, of course, is more interesting for consumers and can also be a more premium product. So again, short supply chains there also play a matter. And caught in the morning and on your plate in the afternoon, that is, of course, what seafood lovers are all about. Then, of course, you have F&B versus retail. So let's say food and beverage is, of course, like, for my personal imagery, food and beverages, of course, is things like you chop up things that are becoming ingredients. Even though that might be true, that the shape and the size and the grading is actually not as important. Strangely enough, there are really a lot of restaurants that are using only A grade and B grade ingredients, so really the best of the best. What I've noticed so far is, like, if you look at, for example, hotels, the more stars there are in a hotel, the more price sensitive the buying process is. So they might actually end up buying things that are, lower grade ingredients in that sense. Um, and then, of course, retail, yeah, it's really the eyes are what beats the eye. So you have a lot of people shopping there who buy on site. A lot of people are very, yeah, sensitive to what something looks like, etc., rather than price. So they only buy the best looking fruit and, the best looking vegetables, basically the freshest looking. Uh, Supermarkets and also hypermarkets and maybe the mini market chains that sell fresh as well, they have really fresh as a very important driver. I'll go into that in a moment, how they look at fresh, but it is basically making or breaking a retail chain. So how does it make and break the retail chain? You see, how retailers approach fresh basically is that it is a traffic builder for the stores. So if you look at the stores that are doing best are also really the stores that take care a lot of fresh, a lot of their fresh assortment. So if you look at the Netherlands or let's say Europe in general, you have a discount chain called Lidl, which is German in origin. They have been voted, I think, 7 or 8 years in a row now, as I think it's 7 years, 7 years in a row as the best in fruit and vegetables. So they really put everything on their fruit and vegetable assortment, so price and quality. And the second thing is, of course, like they combine it with a discount model. So actually, people they're going there for the rest of their groceries, which is less expensive than an A brand supermarket, basically, or a full service supermarket. And then, of course, they use it as a traffic builder where people are coming to the store. So if you look at a lot of the fruit and vegetable category promotions also are geared towards driving people to the stores. If you look at Indonesia, also you look at opening a supermarket without a fresh category, it's going to impact you if you are expecting it to be more than a convenience store. So it is scary. I have been actually with a retailer that was developing fresh from zero. So we really had to learn how to do this from zero. Of course, we had some experience coming in the door with people who were coming from various companies. I had some ex Tanihub people coming in as well. In essence, yeah. The scary part of it is like, okay, how do you start if you have no data? How do you actually calculate the yeah, like say the waste, like what is actually the waste tolerance you are working at. So experimenting can be expensive if you buy something that nobody buys in the end, or it's wrong for your demographic. So matching the demographic, yeah, you have a problem. So we were opening a new store, a hypermarket format, 5,000 square meters. And we were looking at a demographic of middle low. So you're talking about a no, SES bracket of, let's say, C1, C2 at best. Maybe some B would come into the store, but mostly it's middle low as the income brackets basically. But we had imported fruits there, so we were experimenting a little bit with fresh and looking at okay, maybe if we lower the price, people are still buying more exotic fruits and all those things. This was actually a wrong assumption, wrong hypothesis basically. So the hypothesis was proven wrong. So it's experimenting. Like I mean, so there's no right and wrong in that sense. If you just try something and if you don't try, you don't know. But problem was, of course, you have a lot of waste because people were simply not buying it because they didn't know the actual product. So that's the problem with sometimes the demographic is there. So when you look at what people expect, so the bare minimum of what people expect in a store, that is one thing. And then, of course, you have certain things that you can experiment with and say, hey, is this actually something new? If you look at premium supermarkets, they are more prone to experimenting with something they haven't sold before. You have the largest retail chain or supermarket chain in the Netherlands called Albert Heijn. They sometimes have Japanese fruit that only grows in Japan. And then, they buy a batch apparently, and then they are introducing it to, consumers in the Netherlands, or at least there's an importer who is doing that. Same thing is, of course, in Indonesia, where you have a lot of supermarkets. Like there are areas, of course, with a lot of immigrants, where you look at expatriates. A lot of people from China actually move to Indonesia these days with regards to the certain population centers, basically, which, of course, need to have Chinese-centric products. So really fruit and vegetables that are more geared towards Chinese taste, basically. So that is also the reason why that needs to be adapted. There are simply certain things you can't sell in those areas anymore because the 90% of your customers are having a different taste profile than the rest of the country. So that's something that is not only from premium to like mass market, basically, or like lower segment supermarkets, but it can also be ethnicity of certain areas. So you have certain cities in the Netherlands as well, which are maybe having a large expatriate or at least an immigrant profile. So you're looking at every supermarket in the Netherlands, for example, has a customer profile that they make. Okay, do we have a lot of old people? Do we have a lot of young people? A lot of kids coming to supermarket? No kids coming to supermarket. So all these things can actually make an impact. If you don't have kids in your supermarket, why would you sell something for kids, for example? And the same thing goes for fresh. So if you look at, for example, if you are in an area where halal is very important, like you have a very strong Muslim community that is buying from you, you should maybe cut down on selling pork products and have more halal beef and poultry products, basically. So that's the thing that, like I said, the demographic, and of course the quality and the range. So, like I said, there's hardly any example that I can think of, even in Indonesia, where you have some supermarkets that cater to middle low, that they still need to have certain quality standards. So, like say, they probably still at B level, B grade at the minimum. But I've also seen that Mostly supermarkets buy on a tender system, which means like, okay, you have 10 suppliers and they all bid for the same product for the same price. So I'll go into the hedging part in a moment, but the tender system would basically be that, okay, if you are the one who can offer this grade at the best price, you got the deal, and otherwise your competitor gets it. So then there, of course, are a couple of examples of space management. Like I said, we had a couple of examples when I was with Scan and Go supermarkets, for example. That was also something that we considered at that time, to have space management by distributors. Okay, hi, can you just manage the space? You put whatever you want in there, and we give you a higher margin, obviously, because the risk is theirs and not ours, because we were really looking to learn the category. We quickly, at least I quickly, advised the company not to go along with something like that. Space management is something that does happen now. So you have several retailers in Indonesia that do that. The Netherlands, I have not seen this system in place. People are just buying and selling. But space management, the problem with that is that because the risk is higher for the supplier, yeah, they will also just because they decide what's going in, that maybe it's not matching your customers, quality and range profile, basically. So um, they will just put in whatever is left. uh, Experienced people in the fresh category, of course, they are also more trained to spot the potential pitfalls of this the management of like what to sell, what not to sell, what kind of things to do with regards to waste management. So waste management is a big drain on profits. Like it means like really, okay, what you don't sell and what actually is perishable goods. What you don't sell, it's rotten. So you just have to throw it away. And the issue with that is that more inexperienced fresh managers in stores, like younger people, normally they have to still learn at the under the supervision of maybe a more experienced fresh manager. That is actually something that really can tank your profits in that sense, with not knowing whether something is still good, or maybe they are still receptive to, hey, can you help me, I still have a batch here which might not be completely fresh, but I'll give you a bit of a discount to get rid of it. That stuff maybe that shouldn't be sold in your store, and it will disappoint customers, and customers don't come back. So managing waste is really one of the big issues with regards to how buying takes place now. What I know definitely is everything goes by data. So we sold 10 yesterday, therefore we need 10 today. You might actually want to scale it up a little bit if the demand is up, and you clock it. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, we already are out of broccoli. Now then, we need to probably, instead of 10, we need to put 15 tomorrow. If 15 is gone by 3 o'clock, then maybe we need to buy 20. So that's the way it goes up. This is how my colleague actually explains it. He used to be a buyer in one of the largest retailers in Indonesia for fresh. Now, basically just going by data, and anything new, you just try, but then also with smaller quantities, just a test. Basically, it's acceptable risk. So if you don't sell it, you can always say, write it off and say, okay, this is something we will never do again. Managing waste is like, basically, if you're looking at Tanihub, we were at about 4% waste as a distributor. That was quite good. It's basically world class. You're looking at 7-8% is quite a common thing. And if you're doing 6%, you are 5-6%. I think you are doing a very good job in managing the waste, basically, in retail. This is one of the, like I said, key points of how retailers are actually managing fresh. They try also with that space management system, they're trying to push some of the risk to suppliers. And of course, suppliers, they also don't have infinite margin from this. So this is a bit of a game where, okay, I give you less margin, I give you more margin, that sort of thing. And of course, one of the things that retailers also do is actually hedging suppliers. So the thing is important. It's a bit of a balance between having the best price for your product and reliable supply. So what retailers are trying to do is hedge their suppliers, like play them off against each other a bit in that sense. So in essence, you will have maybe 20 suppliers, while you could also only have three. The thing is, with a lot of suppliers, will have a specialism. They maybe only deal with like two, three, maybe four different products. The larger ones, of course, maybe deal with 10, 15 different products. But there are very few suppliers that can supply everything because it's all a quantity game. I'll go into suppliers in a moment. Um, the thing with that is that retailers will actually not give all of their business to you as a supplier. So they will always keep backup suppliers, meaning that the maximum that you might get from them is 30% of their business. So if you are a supplier and you say, I want all your business, that probably will never happen unless you have less experienced people who do that, or they're really in a crunch at that particular moment. But smart retailers are actually keeping at least three suppliers that they are dividing the business over, just in case one of them can't supply. Then at least you have two backup suppliers who can fill the quota. That will also be a price technical game actually that they're playing. Sometimes they will order, maybe three times the amount from you, and then just with a trick actually reject your quantity. So they will only take one third of what you, with a, it's not according to our specifications or something like that. So they might do that. So this is also the thing that were not sure that the others actually were able to supply. So thing is, like, if a retailer rejects the supply from a supplier, they just have to take it back. They don't get paid for what they don't supply. So you only get paid for what you supply. Um, then, of course, one of the things that is really more a European American thing, maybe some in Singapore, Japan also, they have a lot of Hong Kong, maybe a lot of organic and social impact stories. I've seen in Indonesia it starts to really become a thing in premium supermarkets as well. But let's say in the Netherlands, this is almost like bread and butter. If you look at organic farming, so like people are paying more for organic products, with there's no no poison basically used to kill bugs and all those things. And again, people are really interested in traceability. So you're talking about, where does my product come from? Who made it? Is there actually, is it fairly made or fairly grown? Is there no slave labor? Is there no child labor? Basically, all these things are very important in the social impact part of it. And we've had several times, from Tanihub's side, for example, we had export partners that said, "Oh, we are really keen on buying from Indonesia because we sell it as this is a social impact story, because Tanihub is also about social impact, helping farmers to get a fair price for their products and all those things." Um, so that was, for example, a basis for various companies who say, okay, the price might not be competitive when you come to mass market, but it actually was interesting for them because of the social impact and the story behind it. So again, the storytelling, that is, I think, if you look at retailers, is an interesting story. There's one example that I've come across. It's a very small store close to where I live in the Netherlands. They were selling blueberries. So blueberries was a regular item in their portfolio. Blueberries are a big thing in the Netherlands. A lot of companies are selling it. A lot of supermarkets are selling a lot of it. It's superfood, like they activate your brain and all those things. So all these things are it's very popular. So they had blueberries, and at some point they got blueberries from a local farm there. And initially they just put it next to the other blueberries, and I think it was slightly more expensive, if I'm not mistaken. So the first batch that they didn't sell anything, and then they said, okay, but let's try this. We put a a sign next to it and say, this is where it comes from. It's some sort of monastery where it was, in the area of a monastery where it was grown. And some beautiful origin story of like why this was grown and where the proceeds were going and all those things. And then it was sold out. Every single time it was sold out in no time. So this was actually a big difference of, okay, rather than these are just blueberries that are slightly more expensive, or local blueberries, to, hey, this is a story, where does this stuff come from and who is growing it and why. So not only the what, but also the why. So this is the storytelling part of it, which, yeah, becomes more important also for retailers. And you see retailers are actually moving also more towards, hey, this is local. This comes from the farm that you can visit, that you can see around the corner. I have asparagus from my local farmer. I have, potatoes from local farmer, etc. So this is something that people in the Netherlands at least find important. And like I said, it's more in the premium supermarkets in Indonesia. This also becomes a thing, that people are trying to distinguish themselves from the rest in that sense. So let me run you through the entire supply chain process. I've simplified it really very much, but there can be more and less layers, of course, than this. But it starts with a farmer who is harvesting something, growing something, harvesting something, or a fisherman who is fishing in the sea or in fresh water, basically, and catches fish. Farmers also, of course, cattle farmers, where they're growing animals basically, and they are selling them off to a middleman or a slaughterhouse basically. So fruit and vegetables normally go to a middleman, and the middleman cleans it. So in essence, that is the first layer is like, okay, it comes from from the pulled from the ground basically, and thrown into a cart, and that cart goes to a middleman. So the dirt is still on there, and the middleman is the one who washes it and cleans it, and maybe does some initial sorting. Some do, some don't. Depends on how many middlemen there are, but that is normally, okay, I buy this from you. Normally they buy forward when you're talking about, okay, what are you planning to grow? How many hectares? Okay, what do you expect will be the yield of this? So I'm going to you with a bag of money. I'm giving you this. So 50% up front and 50% when you are done, whatever ratio they are agreeing on. Usually it's subsistence, so you're talking about they give them just enough not to starve, and in the end they have really the middlemen are basically sort of call it a bit of mafia basically with regards to the Indonesian mafia, but where they are really trying to turn farmers into captive suppliers. So okay, you are depending on me, you have debts to me, and I'm trying to make you dependent on me. The Netherlands, there are a lot of farmers that are basically having direct relationships with supermarkets, so this is a bit of a difference in supply chain. But the same goes for fishermen. Fishermen also are selling to middlemen, and of course, cattle farmers also are going to sell to a slaughterhouse, or maybe even the middleman first and then to a slaughterhouse. But depends a bit on the location. So if you are, like, say, talking about a very remote cattle farmer, who doesn't have wants to just sell cows once in a while, or chicken basically once in a while, and doesn't really have this set up as a core business, then they need to go maybe to a middleman. Otherwise, they can go right away to the RPA, which is the slaughterhouse basically for either poultry or indeed other animals basically. If you look at cows basically in that sense, for beef. The thing with middleman, of course, adds a little bit of cost to the entire thing. So as soon as if there's a middleman in between the farmer and the slaughterhouse, then you have, of course, a higher cost in that sense. Then after that, at least for fruit and vegetables, it usually goes to a bigger middleman. So there might be several layers. You're talking about small village to a bigger village to a town to a city, and then you're already like 3-4 links in the chain further away, further down the road, so to speak, and everybody is adding their 10%, their 15% on top of it basically. Depending also on the value added services. Some are adding something, they are sorting it, they are packaging it, they are whatever. Then they sort and grade and offer to distributors, retailers, wholesalers, and food and beverage companies or restaurants, basically. You're talking about, everybody has their own market, their own number of customers, in essence, they are going after. And that is basically where the process is, where it really goes to either directly from a middleman to a retailer, or maybe first to a distributor. So wholesalers normally also have this function for F&B. If we say like F&B companies, actually they can buy directly from farmers, or they can buy directly from the RPA, basically. But usually there are wholesalers in between, because let's say if you are running a business and it's not your core business to go to tomato farms. If you say of an Italian restaurant, you want to buy tomatoes for your tomato sauce. Yeah, you're not going to buy in quantities that are interesting for farmers to buy directly. So that is why initially there are middlemen who buy the entire tomato field, and then after that they sell it to retailers. Now there are in Europe, for example, there are retailers like, for example, Aldi or Lidl. Lidl's secret is also, of course, with the low price, that they buy directly from the farmers. They have a guy in Aldi that I know who is only his only job is to actually go to farmers and say, "I want to buy all your tomatoes for the next 6 months. How much would you like for it?" So this is actually the thing that. Yeah, I mean, these companies actually do it in bulk. Now, if you are the owner of one supermarket and you do that, yeah, then it's more difficult, because your customers will not buy the entire potato field or the entire tomato field, basically, in one go. The thing with harvesting, though, is actually that harvests normally don't happen in one go. So they plant in sequence. So you have, maybe this is this week, this is that week, the next week, the next week. So you have, maybe over the course of 4 or 5 weeks, they are actually taking everything out of the ground. Therefore, the supply is also a little bit more balanced. So in the end, products end up on a retail shelf or in a restaurant. So in essence, on the plate of a food and beverage food and beverage place. So you're talking about customers coming to eat there, and sold to customers. So in essence, buying it online, or buying it in a retail store, or indeed in a restaurant as ingredients. So these are things that a lot of shortcuts. Of course, there are also a lot of people here in the Netherlands, for example, have like a farmer store. Okay, I have harvest, and I'm actually selling directly to people who have a day out and maybe bike there, and go and buy directly potatoes from the field, or blueberries, or whatever they want to buy. So a lot of this is actually not set in stone, like I mentioned, but this is globally a very simplified overview of the supply chain process. And a lot of these guys actually need, of course, the cold chain logistics. So in essence, there's a lot of things which, okay, you buy a couple of tons of blueberries. Yeah, you need to, of course, store them properly. So this will not be stuff that you can just put out in the open. You need to have specific storage facilities, and also a way to transport them while they're all still in one piece. So actually, the grading and the quality actually is guaranteed for the retailer and also the other channels. Now, unless you're a retailer watching this, of course, the supplier perspective is probably what you were all waiting for. Again, from a supplier perspective, I've sat on both sides of the table, so to speak. But if you look at suppliers, actually need to manage supply fluctuations and pricing. Meaning, supply fluctuations means that there are farmers that are planting something, and then at some point it's harvest time. So there is very little coordination. I mean, some countries have it better arranged than others, of course. But let's say in Indonesia, I have noticed that there can be a complete surplus of certain items, certain fruits and vegetables in the market, that actually put down the pricing. So in essence, if there's a lot of supply, more than the demand, then of course the price goes down. And if there is very little available and everybody wants to have that commodity in their supermarket, or a lot of restaurants say, "Hey, I can't cook without actually having tomatoes," then of course the price goes up. So that is the supply fluctuations for the distributor. So retailers, of course, have no choice, and also restaurants have no choice, of course, than to accept the pricing that's there. But if you basically are buying a commodity that is currently in abundant supply in the market, yeah, you have a problem maybe getting your money back. So in the end, this is something that hedging a little bit with different products, different commodities. That's why a lot of these companies do multiple, not only one. If you only the tomato king, yeah, then maybe tomatoes actually might be a thing, but you better know exactly what is the harvest time and when tomatoes are scarce and actually abundantly available. So this fluctuation in pricing can really make or break you as a supplier. A lot of good companies actually went down because of that. Yeah, making mistakes in that sense, or having people in key positions that maybe were not really aware of all the ins and outs of this. Then you have basically a choice between specializing and becoming a broadline distributor. Broadline distributor is actually very rare. Tanihub was a broadline distributor. So, and the problem that we had was that we were not specializing in anything. Therefore, we were not really the cheapest in anything. We were able to supply everything, though. So, if you came to us as a retailer, we could sort you out A to Z with everything. Problem with broadline is that again, this all comes in quantity. So you buy a lot of something, the price is low. If you buy a very little of something, the price is high. It's the same as something has to go quick. Yeah? If something needs to be supplied fast, it's more expensive. And if you actually have all the time in the world, yeah, the price doesn't have to be that high because that urgency is not there. So specializing normally is in two, three, four, maybe five commodities. There are also larger companies that can maybe handle up to 10, 15, basically, but still they're specializing. That's why you see that supermarkets normally have like 30 suppliers for maybe their entire range, while there's a lot of overlap. There may be three suppliers in each for each type of commodity that they need, maybe two, three suppliers. And the problem is that if you don't buy in quantity or large quantity, you will always be expensive. So that was actually the problem with Tanihub, that we had customers, for example, that were buying a product. They say, "Oh, we can get you anything that you want." That was also the value proposition that we were saying. Okay, I would need to have kale. Kale is something that is very delicious, but yeah, the thing is that there was a restaurant that really was specializing in kale and kale products, basically, or dishes with kale. But so they bought a lot, but they were the only customer we had for that specific branch that the company had. So problem was that we were only buying kale for them, meaning, okay, then 100 kilograms of kale a week is actually sounds like a lot, but on the grand scale of kale farmers, yeah, wasn't. So in the end, you're talking about price was reasonably high, therefore our profit margins were not really that spectacular on that product. So that's the issue with if you don't specialize, yeah, you're stuck with that. Because every farmer also grows something different, so you would need maybe 100 different suppliers on your end to actually fill your entire broadline distribution. If you don't have a massive company and a massive number of buyers actually that are specializing in each commodity, you are really in a tough spot. And I think that is also when you look at Tanihub, where we missed the opportunity, so to speak. Specializing as a plus minus also, specializing again. If you are unlucky, then your commodities that you are specializing in are all down. The price is down. You can't get a decent price for them. The problem also with that is that you might not be interesting enough for certain retailers, and they say, "Oh, I already have suppliers for this. I don't need any more." No, then you are missing that. If you're a broadliner, of course, you always there's something that they need. Thing with regarding specialization, of course, you do have the ability to really specialize and go deep on certain commodities. So you have quantities, you can build quantities, you can also really streamline your own supply chain process for that. Your storage, your transport, and all those things, you can really gear towards that specific type of commodity. Now, when I say Tanihub was a broadliner, it was not entirely true. We were actually doing quite well on melons, so melon, big fruits to supermarkets. That was actually the one commodity we were really, I think, specialized in, so to speak. We had a lot of experience inside the company, of course, on various commodities, but so melons were really quite a difficult fruit apparently for other suppliers, and we were actually capturing that part of the market. Um, so that is actually one of the things that we were also good at transporting. So we were actually very much geared towards storing and transporting that type of fruit. Um, Now, the risk involved in buying a lot of high quantity products, basically, you say, okay, you want to actually get a good price, then you need to buy tons, not kilos, basically, kilograms. Uh, the risk is that, of course, that harvests are it's all nature, so the harvests might not be up to your expectations. The problem might also be that at that particular moment, the harvest time, so there might be a lot of different other suppliers that actually are flooding the market with quantity. So, you need to really have a bit of a talent of looking ahead, like what is actually the price going to be. Um, then, of course, managing grades and quality. So, what kind of specialization do you have? Now, again, from my experience at Tanihub, we had an e-commerce platform, which for both for B2C and B2B. So, if you talk about B2C, of course, directly to consumers, they were all A grade customers. We had a couple of B and C grade offerings as well. So, okay, you want to have something that is maybe less good looking or less big, but still in terms of kilograms the same. Um, those offerings were there, the economy type of products. So, and B2B, of course, we were also looking at mostly A and B grade products. So if you talk about buying directly from farmers, we would need to buy the entire field from a farmer. So the farmer actually has maybe 25% of A grade, maybe there is 30% of B grade, and the rest is all other grades basically. So your C grade and maybe 10%, 15% unsorted, or what they call the remainder, or rubbish, as they unfortunately said it in maybe less nice to say that, but I mean that was the stuff that is the remainder. Um, so if you buy the entire field, you also have stuff that is stuff you can't sell to those customers. So you need to have a channel for the C and the below, C and below, basically. So that is the challenge when you say, oh, do you have factories, for example, that are using it to create something that doesn't need it's changed the shape basically, maybe it's jam or something like that, marmalade type of products. So these are things that make a bit of a problem. As soon as you are specializing in one grade, I want only A and B grade. You can't buy directly from farmers, other than maybe you have to throw away half of what you buy and hope that the margins on your A and B grade will actually cancel out your losses on the other one. So um, then managing waste and rejection. So waste is definitely a big issue also for suppliers. Whatever you don't sell and goes rotten, that is loss basically. And part of that can also be rejections from customers. So if the customer says, I only want A grade, and you send a truck full of A grade apples, for example, the problem with that is that they will check there and on location, and they will have a certain agenda to follow. Okay, I would like to only have that, or this doesn't meet my specs. They will only pick out what they think is the best basically, and for the rest they will throw out back to you basically what is rejected. So that can become waste if you can't sell it to any other channels. So In Indonesia, for example, a lot of the stuff that is rejected, so really unsorted product or below A, B grade, is actually going to the traditional market. It's just the problem with that was then a traditional market, of course, yeah, it can't cost anything if you actually open up a stall in a traditional market. Now, this is with regards to timing your offerings to retail and F&B. This means that you need to be at a certain time to retail and F&B. So retailers normally have a fixed time in the week that they are buying, maybe 2 times even. If you don't submit your pricing on that day or before that day, you're not part of the tender. F&B has a bit more time sensitive thing, of course, with regards to every single day they can't operate unless they have their raw materials. So you need to offer your new products, of course, to F&B. To say, okay, I would like to supply you daily with this many kilograms of this, basically. So that's the timing part of being a supplier. As a supplier, of course, you need to also invest in cold chain storage and logistics. So to keep the product fresh, to keep the product also edible. Um, and of course, it really goes to a point where you need to build relationships. Now, this is the sales part of things. It's probably no brainer, but um, reliability and reputation. So you have basically normally say a reputation you build over years, and you can destroy it in minutes or seconds even. The reliability is very important. So if you say like for fresh, if your quality is on and off, yeah, they will probably find someone else who can supply, no matter how much they like you. Um, so this is one of the key factors of fresh distribution. So the reputation actually you build over time. And relationships in some cases are really defining factors. There are, of course, when I said just before that normally there's only 30% of the business you can get from a retailer. It's not entirely true in every case because there are retailers that have really, okay, my best friend is, or my brother is the supplier of a certain commodity. Now, then he gets 100% of the business, obviously. So that's the relationship part of it. If you're very good friends with someone, yeah, then maybe they will give you the business because they also trust you. And this is a matter of trust in essence. And your reputation will be good automatically. Then imported products. So imported products normally are things that take a little bit more time and money to get into the country, obviously, but it can be worthwhile. There's a lot of margin, of course, to be had on imported products. There's also stuff that can't be grown locally. That is maybe the core of it. For example, Indonesia, the type of apples in Indonesia that is grown there is they call it apple malang, which is a very small, rather sour apple from East Java. Um, Indonesians themselves don't seem to really be very fond of them, so maybe they are possible to use them as ingredients for something, baking and all those things. But we noticed that imported apples are really very interesting for consumers there. So maybe it's the choice, local versus imported. So that's something where this maybe the climate and the soil is not really suitable for the other types of apples that are imported. So that's one of the examples where imported products are maybe a staple, but is actually needed for various retailers to actually have on stock, and therefore as a supplier it's also maybe interesting to sell that. Now in Tanihub we were always about local farmers, but local farmers cannot supply that kind of apple, so we had to import it. So that is, we were not importing it ourselves, by the way. We were buying it from an importer, but we're buying it from another company that was selling it. So because on our platform, our e-commerce platform, we were in need to actually supply the entire range of products. So we're not really selling it that much to retailers because that was done by those distributors themselves, but more as a complete range where people could buy all of their fresh groceries online. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it also enlightened you a little bit about how fresh works in essence, and you know, how to sell fresh to retailers, and what are the key success factors there. If you would like to send me an email, alex@devriessalesconsultancy.com. We are a consultancy company that could help you out with something like this. A lot of international contacts as well for export of fresh, basically. Both experts in fresh, as in fruit or vegetables, as in yeah, beef and poultry, basically. Thank you.